Hype this video for a cookie.
There is a civil war breaking out in the hearts of Nintendo fans, a quiet, painful conflict fought between our cherished childhood memories and the bitter realities of today. We grew up with these characters, we saved Hyrule with Link, explored the Mushroom Kingdoms with Mario, and caught 'em all with Pikachu. These worlds are a part of who we are as gamers, but the company that created them, the company that once felt like a magical, benevolent toy maker, is making it harder and harder to love them. This isn't a hate video, let's be clear about that from the jump. It's way easier to hate something you never cared about. No, this is more complex. This comes from a place of deep disappointment. It's a sad story of what a betrayal feels like, showing how a beloved institution is systematically tarnishing its own golden reputation. I say this as someone who has lined Nintendo's pockets for decades, who has owned every console, and who has defended them time and time again. But the evidence has become overwhelming. The pattern is too clear to ignore. From suing its own fans for ruinous amounts of money to locking classic games behind expensive subpar services, Nintendo's recent actions are more than a questionable business decision. They're a slap in the face to millions of loyal gamers who built their kingdom. This is a story of how Nintendo, the company that brought joy to generations, is now actively dismantling its own legacy, one lawsuit, one price hike, one broken promise at a time. We need to talk about what's happening because the Nintendo of today is not the Nintendo we grew up with. It always starts with a simple idea, an idea born from passion. A fan wants to create something to celebrate a game they love. A modder wants to improve an old classic. An archivist wants to ensure gaming history isn't lost to time. In most gaming communities, these actions are to be celebrated. They're the lifeblood of what keeps decades-old games alive and relevant. But in Nintendo's new kingdom, this passion is treated as a crime. The punishment is swift, brutal, and designed to make an example out of you. The message is clear: love our games, but don't you dare touch them. Nintendo's legal department has become one of the most feared and aggressive forces in entertainment. Their strategy isn't just about protecting intellectual property, it's about establishing absolute, unquestionable control by creating a culture of fear. This isn't new, but the scale of severity has escalated dramatically. For decades, the company has sent cease and desist letters to fan projects, shutting down remakes like another Metroid 2 remake and Pokemon Uranium, projects made not for profit but for pure love. These actions, while disappointing, were often seen as Nintendo just being overly protective. In 2024, the gloves came off. Nintendo sued the creator of popular Switch emulator Yuzu. The lawsuit claimed Yuzu was facilitating piracy at a colossal scale, citing the leak of The Legends of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom before its official release. The Yuzu team faced a terrifying legal battle against a multi-billion-dollar corporation, settled almost immediately, and they agreed to pay Nintendo $2.4 million in damages, cease all development, and hand over their domains to Nintendo. This case sent a shockwave through the emulation community, effectively killing the most prominent Switch emulator and putting every other project on notice, and this victory only emboldened Nintendo. What followed was a campaign of legal warfare in 2025 that can only be described as the full frontal assault of its own community. Take the case of James Archbox Williams. Williams was a moderator on the Switch Pirates subreddit. Nintendo's investigators tracked him down through the online posts and even a console he'd sent in for repair. They accused him of operating several pirate shops, websites distributing thousands of unauthorized copies of Nintendo games. After Williams allegedly failed to comply with a cease and desist letter, Nintendo filed a lawsuit. When Williams Williams didn't respond in court, Nintendo sought a default judgment, and the damages they requested was a staggering $4.5 million. In their own legal filings, Nintendo's lawyers stated that the 4.5 million figure was nowhere near what would truly compensate for the damage, suggesting they were being lenient. Think about that. They argued that a sum of money that would financially obliterate an average person for life is a gesture of reasonableness. Nintendo knows they'll likely never see that money. The point isn't to recoup losses. The point is to headline. The point is to send a message. We can and we will ruin you. It's a nuclear deterrent designed not for justice but for fear. And it wasn't an isolated incident. In September 2025, Nintendo won a judgment against Ryan Daly, a Michigan resident who ran modded hardware. Daly sold modified Switch consoles and devices, enabling users to play pirated games. After receiving a warning and trying to defend himself in court without a lawyer, Daly ultimately settled. The result was a $2 million judgment against him and a permanent injunction banning him from ever touching, selling, or promoting hardware that could circumvent Nintendo's protections. The court found Daly's actions caused Nintendo significant and irreparable harm. Again, the sheer size of the financial penalty is the weapon. It's the life-destroying figure meant to terrorize anyone who even considers selling a mod chip. The legal crusade didn't stop there either. It extended to anyone using Nintendo's IP in an unauthorized way, no matter how harmless. In May 2025, Nintendo's lawyers shut down Smash Together, a fan-made dating app for Super Smash Bros. Players. The app, with over 400 beta applicants, was set to launch its open beta. One day before launch, the creators posted a simple defeated message. We got a cease and desist from Nintendo, a quirky community building idea that celebrated and shared love for Nintendo franchises was extinguished simply because Nintendo could do it. But the most chilling development in Nintendo's war on its community came in May 2025 with an updated end-user license agreement. These are those long, unread documents you click agree to, but this update contained a time bomb. The new language states that if a user violates the terms by modifying hardware or circumventing protections, Nintendo may render your device permanently unusable in whole or in part. Let's not mince words. They are asserting the right to remotely brick your console. The hardware you paid hundreds of dollars for could be turned into a useless piece of plastic by a switch flipped in Kyoto if Nintendo merely suspects you of unauthorized activity. There is no mention of due process or a trial, just Nintendo's sole discretion. This is an unprecedented level of control over a product that you supposedly own. It transforms your console from a possession into a rental that can be revoked at any moment. This clause is the ultimate expression of Nintendo's philosophy. Your enjoyment is a privilege they grant, not a right that you have. If this is how Nintendo treats people celebrating its own creations, how does it treat the paying customers who just want to play games? The answer is, unfortunately, is with a similar and growing contempt. For years, the refrain from loyal fans has been, well, at least the games are good. And they are. Nintendo's developers remain some of the best in the world, but that goodwill is being systematically drained by a corporate strategy that seems determined to squeeze every last cent out of its players, turning nostalgia into a premium commodity. The most glaring example is the Nintendo Switch Online service. When it launched, it was a bargain compared to PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live. For just $20 a year, you got online play and some classic NES games. It was reasonable, bare bones, but then came the greed. In 2021, Nintendo announced the expansion pack. This premium tier was required for Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy Advance games. The price? more than double the original, jumping to $50 for an individual and a whopping $80 for family plan. The backlash was immediate. Fans were outraged not just by the price but by the shoddy quality. The N64 emulation was at launch abysmal, suffering from input lag, graphical glitches, and wrong button mapping. These weren't lovingly preserved classics, these were poorly running ROMs you were now paying a premium to rent. Even as of 2025, the value remains questionable. The online infrastructure for games like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate still feels like a decade out of date, and the classic games library is a slow drip feed of titles. It's a walled garden designed to give you just enough nostalgia to justify the annual fee, while ignoring that free, superior emulation offers fans a far better experience. The very options Nintendo is suing out of existence. They are simultaneously destroying the best method of game preservation and then charging you a premium for a worse lockdown alternative. It's a gangster level business tactic, and this aggressive pricing now extends to their core products. For years, Nintendo games has famously held their value. A 5-year-old Mario game often retails for full $60 launch price. Frustrating, but it's a testament to their quality. But with the launch of the Switch 2 in June 2025, Nintendo has embraced the controversial new industry standard of $70 and $80 games. This really signals a whole new era for Nintendo pricing, placing their titles among the most expensive in the industry, and other publishers justify the $70 price with ballooning development costs and photorealistic graphics. But Nintendo games, while brilliant, focus on gameplay over raw technical power. This price hike feels less like a necessity and more like an opportunistic cash grab. The sticker shock doesn't end there. Nintendo has become far more aggressive with DLC. We are seeing more games with DLC packs announced before the game is even released. The idea of a complete experience at launch is dying. Now there's a growing expectation to shell out close to $100 for the full package, a psychological trick that makes the $70 base price seem even more reasonable by comparison. It's a strategy that carves up the game and sells it back to you in pieces. This is especially insulting with remakes. Fans have slammed Nintendo for releasing slightly updated older games at full price, often with features that should have been included from the start. You're being asked to repurchase games you already own, sometimes for the 4th time in a row, just for a minor graphical update and a paper-thin DLC. And what about the hardware itself? The Switch has been plagued with Joy-Con drift, a defect where analog sticks register input where they aren't being touched. This affected millions of units, leading to class action lawsuits with the Switch 1, and Nintendo's initial response was silence, followed by a reluctant repair program. It took years of public pressure for them to properly acknowledge the problem's scale. This became a symbol of corporate arrogance, a feeling that they could ignore a fundamental flaw because, well, where else are you gonna play Zelda? This attitude is clear signal that the days of Nintendo prioritizing accessibility and family-friendly pricing might be over forever. So now we're left with a company at war with itself, a company whose creative side produces some of the most joyful experiences on the planet, while its corporate side seems hell-bent on alienating its most ardent supporters. The story of Nintendo in the 2020s is a story of contradictions. It's a story of a company that claims to be a family-friendly while pursuing financially ruinous lawsuits against individuals. It's a company that sells nostalgia while actively destroying community efforts to preserve its own history. It's a company that builds magical worlds but then puts up a paywall around every corner. Why is this happening? Perhaps it's the inevitable result of immense success. The original Switch was a phenomenon that sold over 153 million units by June 2025. With that level of market dominance comes with a ton of arrogance, the feeling that you're untouchable, that your fans will follow you no matter what happens. Perhaps it's a philosophical shift, the era of leaders like Satoru Iwata, a programmer who famously said, "On my business card, I am a corporate president, in my mind, I am a game developer, but in my heart, I am a gamer," feels like a distant memory. The Nintendo of today feels more like a company run by lawyers and accountants, where decisions are driven by shareholder value, not by player joy. Their public statements regarding IP infringement and clones like Palworld show a company more interested in stifling competition than fostering innovation. Nintendo's legacy was never just about Mario and Zelda, it was about a seal of quality, a deep respect for the player. It was about innovation, fun, and a magic no other company could replicate. A legacy isn't a museum piece, it's a living thing that must be nurtured. Right now, Nintendo's actions aren't nurturing its legacy at all, they're corroding it. They're trading the decades of goodwill for short-term profits and iron-fisted control. The golden reputation they spent over 40 years building is being systematically tarnished. The people who grew up loving Nintendo are the very people being pushed away. The question is no longer if Nintendo is damaging its legacy, but whether they'll realize it before it's too late. Will they remember their empire was built not on lawsuits and subscription fees, but on loyalty and love of their fans? Or will they continue down this path until all that's left of the magical kingdom is a collection of expensive locked down properties, a shadow of what it once was? And this is a complex issue, and I know there's a lot of strong feelings about it out there, so I want to hear from you. What was the moment that made you question Nintendo's direction? Was it a lawsuit, the price of a game, or something else entirely? Let's talk about it down in the comments below, and if you appreciate these kind of deep dives into the gaming industry, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on all notifications. It helps way more than you know. Thanks for watching.